In this video, we are going to cover the difference between MCP and skill. So if we look into this particular diagram, so MCP is basically your execution layer, which is going to help us in the execution problem when our agent needs to do something. Whereas a skill is our knowledge layer for agent, and this is going to solve the knowledge problem when the agent needs to know something. So the core functionality of MCP would be when we have to connect with the external system, whereas the core functionality of a skill would be where we would define something for agent on the top of connected data. This definition could be related to workflow, guardrails, and the decision logic which agent has to take in. The token cost of MCP is going to be way higher. So let's take example of GitHub MCP server, which expose n number of tools. An agent just connect with the MCP server, then most of the context window would get filled up with approx 23,000 to 50,000 tokens, considering the number of tools a particular MCP server is exposing to the agent. So approx 200k to 400k tokens are going to be consumed just to connect with approx 12 MCP servers combined. So it's a lot of token consumption on the context window side. The benefit of a skill would be the token consumption is going to be very less, and it's going to be 100x cheaper than MCP for any kind of knowledge task. So there are a lot of MCP servers available. We can connect with Gmail, GitHub, Slack, and we can also create our custom MCP servers to connect with the external systems like databases. Real world skills files could be related to, certain guidance on the email when we have to define certain kind of PR workflow logic, when we have to define certain kind of guide for the deployment, when we have to define certain kind of guide for triaging. So there are n number of use cases for the skills files. We generally use MCP when we need to, call live APIs, query databases, or we have to perform like certain actions. We use skills when need to define certain kind of workflow, guardrails, and certain kind of conventions based on our enterprises. So we can define all those guidelines for the agent using skill. Now the key part is MCP is going to help us in the plumbing. So it will help us to connect with the different systems to pull out the data. So disconnecting MCP is going to break the data flow, but it's not going to break your thinking logic. Whereas skills are basically the intelligence, and it can work without MCP connected. So you can pass the data via any kind of means to skills. MCP is just one of the options for the skill to get the data. In certain cases, we can also take the hybrid pattern. It's not like the skills and MCP cannot work together. If we have to take the hybrid pattern, the workflow is going to be like this. So first of all, we are going to define our knowledge base or workflow in the skill.md file. Now agent is going to read this particular skill and decide, okay, what action it has to take in. Let's say we have defined MCP tools for certain actions. So this agent is going to call the MCP tool for the execution, and then the results are going to get returned to the agent, and then agent is going to follow the guideline which are described in this skill.md file, but the data is going to come from this MCP tool execution. So you can correlate skills are going to be your thinking layer, where MCP is going to be your data sending layer. Here also you can see how the skills and MCP works in the real world. So as we know, MCP is going to have MCP host, and this host can be like any of your agents or your IDE or Cloud Desktop. So any kind of tool which supports MCP host, they will expose the MCP client, and using this MCP client, you can connect to n number of MCP servers. And these servers are going to expose n number of tools which are going to pull the data from different systems. Whereas your agent is going to sit on top of the skills. So skills are basically just some markdown files. So we can create n number of skills over here. Like as you can see in this diagram, there is a skills for Hugging Face dataset. You can create your custom skills as well. And the skills structures are going to be something like this, where the main file is going to be skill.md, and it can have like n number of folders over here for the additional or the reference file. Now, if you want to see real skills, then there is a lot of GitHub repo available on internet. I'm just going to go to Anthropic skill folder, and if I click on this, then you can see there are a lot of skills available here with the example. So even if I click on this PDF skills, then you can see it also has this skill.md file, which is going to have all this overview, the quick start, the context, and everything has been defined over here. And it won't be feasible to put everything into one skill.md file. So that's where the references file come into picture. So here you can see for advanced feature, JavaScript library and detailed example, see reference.md. And if you need to fill out a PDF form, then read form.pdf. So these are the instructions which you are providing to the agent. So agent is going to read this skill.md file, and then it will decide, okay, what exactly it has to do next. So if there are any references or scripts, like in this case, we do have some references file and the script folder. So based on the task, it is going to decide, okay, which particular script or the reference file it has to execute, and then it will provide the result to the user. Now, if we have to use like some kind of MCP tool or some kind of MCP server over here, so we can just give that reference to under skill.md file, or we can just put some code in the scripts and then ask skill.md file to refer that MCP server in the given scenario, and the agent would follow that particular instruction. So you can clearly see, like here we are defining all the guidelines, all the workflow, and based on that, agent is going to take a call what exactly it has to do. Skills are going to be more powerful, whereas MCP is just going to provide you the data layer, and it's not mandatory to pass MCP server in the skills. So why this token cost is going to be 100x cheaper than MCP for the knowledge task? Let's say our agent is going to connect to the GitHub MCP server. So when we connect to the GitHub MCP server, it's going to dump all the tools, parents, docs into the context window. Now the context window is going to get filled up. 50,000 tokens are just going to be filled up with this MCP tool schema itself. Your most of the context window would be gone, and only the minimal context window would be left to get the input or generate the output from agent. Specifically to GitHub MCP server, what those 50,000 tokens can contain. So it will have like all your methods available: create issue, list repos, merge PR, whatever the functionality we have under GitHub, all can be exposed as a tool. But when we expose it, then the problem would be agent knows every possible GitHub action, but not your team's conventions, order or rules. So it can result into expensive context burn and slow reasoning. Now what happened in skill, there is a concept called progressive disclosure. So as you can see in the real world skill, we are also passing a lot of context over here, a lot of instructions that we can pass it either in the skill.md file or the references file or the scripts. So if we dump everything all together into the context window, then it will also fill up, a lot of space in the context window. But here is a catch, because when we work with skills, not everything is going to get loaded at once into the context window. It gets loaded at a 3 level. So first of all, your skill.md file is going to get loaded, and not all of the content of this skill.md file. So if I go to the code section, then you can see this part, and this is called YAML formatter. So only this part is going to get loaded into the context window, not the whole skill.md file. So in this case, what would happen? Only this particular information is going to get loaded into the skill.md file, and this would be having very less number of tokens per skill. And because of this particular functionality, we can put n number of skills in the context window for the agent. So it's not like, okay, at one point of time we can put only one skill. We can put n number of skills over there, because only the name and the description is going to get loaded. Now at this level, most of our context window is going to be free. Now let's say after getting user input, agent has decided, okay, it has to use a particular skill.md file. So let's say user comes and say extract PDF text. Now in this case, agent would decide, okay, which particular skill it has to use. So it will read this skill.md name and description, and it will decide, okay, now out of all the skills what I have available, I need to use this PDF skill. In that case only, it will just go ahead and read the skill.md file. So it will read whole body of the skill.md file, and that token cost is also going to be less than 1000 tokens. So now we have this part got consumed in the context window, which would be the combination of level 1 and level 2. But in this case also, most of the context window is going to be free. Now at level 3, it's going to refer the additional resources in the code, and it will be loaded as needed. Let's say in the skill folder, we do have all this references file and the scripts. Forms and reference MD file is going to get loaded if there is a need for that. So if the agent decides, okay, it has to fill the forms, it will go to the forms.md, or it has to refer something, then it will go to reference.md. It's not like, okay, both are going to be loaded at once. So as you can see, when we run this fill form.py, so only the output enters the context and not the script. Script code never enters context window. So the token cost from this part is also going to be effectively 0 because the script run via bash. And using this approach, actually we can save a lot of space on the context window, and this is not the case with MCP. So you can see after 3 levels also most of the context window are still going to be free. So that's the advantage of using a skill. In short, this is the core difference between MCP and a skill. For now, that's all what we have in this video. Thank you for watching.